What's up, YouTubers? Hardworker12 with you here, driving my 2020 Subaru Impreza. I have officially had this car now for 6 months. I've put about 5,700 miles on it. Most of those miles have been highway miles, driving back and forth to Northern California for numerous reasons. So how's this car been to live with? Well, very nice. Get a few little things out of the way. Reliability, it's been absolutely perfect. I haven't had one single problem with the car. Fuel economy, it does about what it says it will. The fuel economy rating EPA is 28 miles per gallon in the city, 36 on the highway. I've only really bothered to measure it on highway drives, and it basically does what it says it will do. If I'm going uphill, starting at about 400 feet of elevation and ending up at about 6,500 feet of elevation, it'll average between 33 and 34. If I'm coming back down, it averages between 38 and 39. So split the difference. You know, the fuel economy's been fine. It does what it says it will do on the window sticker. Driving wise, you have to kind of decide what it is that you want in a daily driver. Is this car very fast? No. Is this car very exciting? No. If you have 17 kids, this is not the right car for you. You can only fit 5 people in it. If you need to tow a giant boat, this is not the car for you. It won't tow. If you're looking for the command driving position of a sport utility vehicle and the flexibility to go skiing and take it to the Nürburgring and do this, that, no. It's not what this car's about. But if you're just looking for a comfortable, safe, reliable car that will get you where you need to go, super smooth ride, that's probably my favorite thing about driving it. It's just a very, very comfortable car, and you feel very safe in it. You know, this particular one is the premium package, and I got the package with the blind spot monitors, the rear cross traffic alert. All of them come with the eyesight, so I have the forward collision alert, I have the emergency braking, I have adaptive cruise control, I have lane departure warning, I have lane keep assist, and of course the crash test results are very good on this vehicle. So you feel safe and you feel comfortable. And let's be honest, it's 2020. Those are two feelings that are very important to have. And that's what I like the best about this car, is I get in it, it doesn't stress me out. I'm safe, I'm comfortable, I'm getting where I need to go, I'm not burning too much gas, the car's affordable. It's perfect. It's actually the perfect car for me right now. And I lease returned my 2017 WRX STI and got into this, mainly because it was cheaper, since I haven't been working, and it's been perfect. I've loved it. Now, with that being said, my criticisms of the vehicle, the acceleration is not great. I'll be honest about that. My other criticism of this car is the steering, not the handling. The handling is actually very good on the Impreza, but the steering is the weak point. You just don't have a whole lot of steering feel. You don't have any idea really what the front wheels are doing. There's not a whole lot of slack in it. If you turn the wheel a little bit, it does respond, but there's just, it doesn't build weight as you go deeper into a corner. You don't have a whole lot of information from it. With that being said, the actual handling is quite good on this car. Once the suspension takes a set, there's a lot of grip, and it feels pretty neutral in transitions and corners. So for what it is, being essentially a compact economy car, the handling is, I would say, considerably above average for the segment to the competitors that you could get. But the steering lets the whole package down. It took me really a drive of about 500 miles through some mountain roads to really wrap my head around, oh, this car actually does handle well, it's just the steering feels like crap. And there is a difference. There's a difference between handling and steering, and I've driven cars that handled poorly but had good steering, and vice versa, and this one is vice versa. It handles well, but the steering isn't good. But this does give me hope for the upcoming WRX and STI, the new models that are going to be built on this chassis, if they put a better steering rack, a different steering setup in those cars, those are really going to be nice handling cars. As long as the steering's sharper and you have kind of more of an idea of what the front wheels are doing, they're going to handle very, very well. So I'm looking forward to that. Perhaps I'll get into another STI or a WRX or something at some point. But let's talk about oil consumption. Now, oil consumption is something that Subaru has gotten a bit of a bad rap for. Maybe they've earned it, maybe they haven't. And quite frankly, just about every auto manufacturer has some sort of issue with oil consumption. So this particular car currently has 5,760 miles on it. It's due for an oil change at 6,000 miles, so I'm almost there. And I just checked it and topped it off, and it has burned 1/2 of 1 quart of oil in 5,760 miles. I would not consider this to be excessive. I would not consider it to be problematic. And quite frankly, 1/2 quart low isn't even that low. If I would have driven it another 240 miles and just had an oil change per the manufacturer's specification, no issues there. So that's what this particular car, 2020 Impreza with a 2-liter engine, has done so far. I'll keep an eye on it, you know, as my stewardship of this vehicle goes along. But this is my 5th Subaru, so I'll give you my personal history of Subarus and oil consumption, because I'm very particular about my vehicles. I always check oil, do the maintenance on time. I pay attention to my cars. So the first Subaru that I had was a 2010 Impreza, silver. And that car back then had a 2.5-liter EJ engine, single overhead cam, no turbo, and the oil change interval at the time per the manufacturer was 7,500 miles. That car, like clockwork, burned 1 quart of oil every 7,500 miles. Every single time between oil changes, it burned 1 quart. Again, I would not consider this to be excessive, but that was what it did. And I'd check it about every 1,000 miles or so, top it off a little bit when it needed it, and it was always 1 quart per 7,500 miles. My next Subaru was a 2013 Legacy 2.5i. Now, the 2013 Legacy was the first one with the new FA engine, so that's the dual overhead cam timing chain motor that they currently use. Back then, it didn't have direct fuel injection, it had port fuel injection, and that car was still 7,500 mile oil change intervals. That car, like clockwork, burned about 6/10 of 1 quart of oil. So it would go through 60% of a quart, basically, in 7,500 miles. So I considered that progress. Hey, it burns less than my old one did. That Legacy ended up being part of a class action lawsuit against Subaru for the 2.5-liter engines in the Legacy and the Outback for those years. I got letters in the mail about it, but I never got anything out of it or was involved with it because I thought it was fine. I mean, 6/10 of a quart of oil in 7,500 miles is not bad oil consumption. And I put 52,000 miles on that car, so I had that one for a little while. My next Subaru was a 2016 Forester XT. Now, the Forester XT had the FA20 engine with the turbo with direct fuel injection. So I expected that one to burn a little bit more oil than my previous ones because turbocharging can kind of help burn oil because the turbo's oil cooled, and direct fuel injection also can potentially burn some oil. Just in my experience, it seems like direct injection motors might burn more than port injection motors. Now, by the time that 2016 was built, manufacturer spec, Subaru had shortened the oil change interval to 6,000 miles, which is what it currently is on this car, and that was the spec that I stuck to. I only put 26,000 miles on that car before I got rid of it, so I did 4 oil changes. That car never, ever burned a drop of oil. It never needed oil. I never put oil in it, which I thought was really weird because I had expected it to burn oil, quite frankly, but I'd check it right up until, 6,000 miles when it needed an oil change. 2016 Forester XT never burned a drop. Traded that in for my 2017 WRX STI. Now, the STI, back to the EJ engine, dual overhead cam this time with the turbocharger. So based on my previous experience with an EJ Subaru in my 2010 regular 2.5 Impreza, I figured the STI was going to burn oil. I mean, it's an STI. I did not abuse that car, but I drove it. I mean, I floored it. I definitely had my fun with that car. It was the only one that wasn't 100% predictable. Again, 6,000 mile oil changes. I did the oil change every 6,000 miles, but there was some certain oil change intervals where it burned no oil. The most it ever burned, and this is a WRX STI with an EJ25, the most I ever got it to burn between oil changes was 1/3 of 1 quart. So it barely consumed any oil, which again surprised me because EJ engine with a turbo, with a heavy foot, I figured, man, we're gonna burn some oil. Not really. Like I said, it must have had to do with driving style and just what in that particular 6,000 miles, I didn't hammer it as much as I did in this one, or maybe it was because I drove up to Tahoe and I don't know. But that one barely burned oil. If it did, there was, I think, 2 times I had to add oil before the oil change, and I only ever had to add like 1/3 of a quart. So in my experience, and I can only speak from what I've lived through, but having had 5 Subarus and having put 42, 53, 95, about 140,000 miles on different Subarus, I have not run into huge oil consumption issues. But so there you go. My 2020 Impreza took a 1/2 quart of oil at 5,760 miles, which technically means it's burning more oil than my STI did, which is funny. So yeah, oil consumption's a thing. Off the record, just between me and you, the 6,000 mile oil change interval that Subaru has now is really only because people don't check their oil the way that they should. Now, if you check your oil every couple thousand miles and you top it off to make sure there's always enough in there, realistically, without hurting anything, you could easily go 10,000 miles in between oil changes on these cars. I don't, and I'm not necessarily recommending this to you, but I'm just letting you know. The reason why they shortened the oil change interval from 7,500 to 6,000, the year that they did that, there was no changes at all to the engines. They were the same exact engines that they'd been building, but they just did it because of the class action lawsuit that my 2013 Legacy 2.5 was a part of. Well, okay, if the engines are going to burn oil, these people aren't checking their oil and topping it up. We'll just make them change the oil sooner and they won't notice engine damage because instead of 7,500, you changed it at 6,000, fill the oil back up, whatever. All new Subarus use synthetic oil, so you could easily go 10,000 miles between oil changes if you're checking it on a regular basis and making sure that the level is always topped off. As long as the level's good, 10,000 miles between oil changes wouldn't technically be a problem, but the problem is most people don't do this. So it's probably best to stick with the manufacturer's recommended maintenance schedule. That's what I do, even though I know that I could go 10,000 miles between oil changes. I just don't bother. I just get the oil changed. So that's my rant about Subaru oil consumption and my beautiful review of my daily driver 2020 Subaru Impreza. I am enjoying the car quite a bit. It's working out very well for me. If you're looking for just a clean, simple, easy daily driver, I highly recommend it. If you're looking for something more, it's really not more than that, but it'll get you where you need to go. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.